I'm Scott Mitchell. I'm the animation art director on Rainbow Six Siege.
I called you here today because we face dire circumstances.
At Gamescom, Rainbow Six Siege is showing the new Spectator Cam, and of course we've unveiled the new GSG9 operators. The Spectator Cam is actually an interesting way for an 11th player, if you will, to come in and observe. They don't have chat access, so there's no exploits going on there. They can't really communicate with the other players, but they're there to watch. So they have access to all the first-person cameras, as well as a tactical camera where they can kind of pull out, move the camera around freely, and see what tactics are being used, who's using which operators, how they're using their devices. So it's really a great learning tool. So I believe we're showing the canal map. The main map that's been playable on the floor, however, has been the Hereford Base Camp, which is the training grounds for the SAS. It's a multi-leveled map. It's quite large. The attackers start outside, defenders inside, everything comes back inside. Like the rest of the maps, everything happens on the inside. It's all internal. Very tight, close quarters. Everything's blowing up. It's extremely tense. It's a lot of fun.
You've been showing the game on the show floor as well, and obviously you had your alpha recently. What's the feedback been like from that?
The feedback from the closed alpha was absolutely amazing. I've said it over and over again that the community has gotten involved. They love being involved. We've got great feedback from them, and we're applying it and then showing them how we've been applying it. Things like devices that were too overpowered during the closed alpha, they were very vocal about. So we went back and tweaked it. We've had them back in the studio. There were thousands of people that were sending us feedback, and we'd like to continue with that for our beta that's coming up in September.
Cool. So what's going to be in that beta come September then?
Well, the beta is going to be our beta build. It's before we ship the final game, so again, we're looking for more feedback from the players. There'll be new maps, there'll be all the new operators that they'll be able to play with, and again, we're looking for them to play test and tell us what they like, what they don't like, and that helps us a little bit set our priorities for what happens when we ship the final game, how we balance everything.
I mean, it's a very tactical game, obviously, and kind of a return to the roots almost of old Rainbow Six. Is that quite a tough thing to balance and get right?
It is quite tough for players to get that right. I think if you don't communicate with your team, that's when things start to fall apart. And of course, everybody wants to play a little bit differently, so we give the 20 different operators, each have their own gadget, so you can pick and choose who you like to play with. But that doesn't change the fact that you really need to communicate well with your team. Let them know where you are in the map, what you're seeing, who you've killed, etc., what's going on if you're down but you're not out. It's really, really important. So yes, tactics play a major part in that. You also see how an attacker will breach in towards an objective, or how a defender will barricade themselves is extremely important.
You've got all these different international kind of squads as well. How do they differ in terms of like loadouts and skills and things?
Their loadouts actually contain weapons that their actual unit in real life would contain. You can unlock upgrades, things like scopes and silencers that you can unlock them through all the different modes, but the gadgets are specific for each operator. Those things don't change. As well, when you go into a map, you can see right away the difference in the silhouette of the character. So each of their uniforms are very specific. Their size and shape is specific to the country that they're from.
Was it important to get the weapons feeling right and get each squad feeling unique as well?
Of course, it's extremely important to get the weapon feel right, because there's a lot of expectations, right? We have to fit within the rest of the community of shooters. You know, players have high expectations for, recoil and things like that. And again, the closed alpha was great for helping us balance that kind of thing.
Does that mean you guys got to play with guns in real life and then, move your experiences across into the game?
Some of us have gotten to play with guns in real life more than others. We have an assistant art director who is just crazy about the whole culture, so he's been a really great reference for us. But we've also hired great actors that come from that background. We hired an ex-counter-terrorist unit operator from Israel who was a breacher, and he did the majority of our mocap for our cinematics and some of our gameplay, and he was actually helping train us and as well the other actors that we had on set. He was able to take us through the different platforms that the different teams use and show us the differences.
I had quite a tough time with the game when I played it last year. I got kind of killed quite quickly because obviously anyone can come from anywhere, thanks to the destruction system. So do you have any kind of tips for a player like me who's, not very good?
For sure. Definitely team play, that communicate. If you go in alone, if you separate, that's when things start to get really difficult. And of course, the other tactics, like checking your corners. You know, be careful, use the lean, use the peeking, use the crouch, use the prone as much as you can. Check in every little nook and cranny as you come into a room, because if you just rush in right in the middle, it's going to be over pretty quick if you're not careful. But we give you tools, things like the drones that you can activate at any time. You know, the same drone that you use during the preparation phase, you actually have access to that while you're playing through. So you can send the drone in and scope out a room beforehand to kind of judge what you're doing. But the opposing team can also take out those drones.
So you've got the PvP and you've got the terror hunt. What other stuff you're going to have to keep players engaged? You're going to have post-launch content and stuff and updates to keep the community.
So we had the PvE, we had the PvP, and we have co-op. Actually, what keeps it all interesting and fresh is the fact that it's dynamic, changing all the time. You know, there's a story that unfolds every time you play. The anecdotes that come out of our players after every session is amazing. It's different depending on which operator you choose. It's different depending on, you know, which map you're playing with, and the tactics are changing forever. The destruction plays a huge role in that. So there's a lot of replayability just revolving around those new features.
If you had to pick one feature in particular that you're excited about getting into people's hands, what would it be?
It's definitely the destruction that we feel that the players are going to be the most excited about, and actually that's what's going over so well. The idea that everything is so tense all the time, the destruction just really helps, you know, augment that. You could be walking down a corridor and you think you're safe, and all of a sudden a hole gets blown in the wall beside you, and that's now a new entry point, and it opens up lots of new sight lines. So new sight lines are just coming about all over the place, and it's just super tense and high-paced action.